this way a little bit.
So thank you, Cantor Sager, for agreeing to speak to us today, answering some of the middle school students' questions about God.
It's my pleasure.
So I just wanted to start with this question. Do you think believing in a religion is taking a leap of faith?
Well, in a sense, yes, it is, because all religions are based on an idea of an ultimate source, power, creator, God, whatever, whatever we might call that entity that really is indefinable. But because we cannot see it or touch it, or we can feel it, I believe, it is something we are declaring our belief in something different from anything else we believe in. Everything else we believe in the world, we have a direct experience. There are some people who believe they have had a direct experience of God, but even if they haven't, or we haven't, Jews believe there is a God, and that God is the source of certainly the creation of the world and of humanity. Um, I personally believe that God is responsible for the rules of the universe. That means the natural rules as well as the ethical rules, the moral rules, the rules that say how we are supposed to behave. Um, so, yes, I think it does take a certain leap, and I think that that's probably the place that people have the most difficulty who cannot believe in a religion is what is God, where is God, how is God. It's a there is a mystery to it, and there is a willingness to suspend a certain amount of not rationality, because I think it is a rational thing to believe in God, but to suspend scientific evidence in the way that we would demand scientific or mathematical or physical evidence for other, or biological evidence for other kinds of things in which we believe.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense to me. Do
Thank
you
you.
think that God can change with us?
It's really, yeah, the bottom line is yes, but it's not really the way the question has been phrased. What I do believe is, but it's I mean, it's a wonderful question. I believe that God changes for each of us as we grow and mature and learn and have a variety of experiences. I think that I hope that my idea of God as a mature adult, it's not only I hope, I know that my idea of God as a mature adult is very different from the idea of God I had when I was 10, or when I was 25, or when I was 40. It keeps changing, and it changes with what I observe about the world. It changes with my interactions with other human beings. It changes with my own personal experiences. And I think that that's part of the wonder of belief and of um, wanting to have some kind of a relationship with God or with an idea of God, because it's eternally fascinating. You're never finished. I don't think one can ever be finished with thinking about God or um, feeling what God might mean in our lives. I'm about to go to a retreat. The reason that Rabbi Jordana is doing this video is because I cannot be here this weekend. I will be in near Los Angeles at a place called the Brandeis Bardeen Institute, and that is a place where many people go on retreat. This is a spirituality retreat during which we will think about God and, in fact, explore different ways of being with God and approaching God and thinking about God, about our presence with God and God's presence with us. One of my favorite parts of this retreat is that we go on what is called a hitbodedut walk, and that means that we do a certain kind of self-examination within the context of communicating with God. And we are encouraged to talk out loud to God, to sing with God to God, to imagine God's presence as we walk among the. It's not when we're all together, we all kind of spread out, but we find a place outside in nature on a, it's not a mountain, but it's kind of like a hill. There are hills there that are lovely to walk up and to sense God's presence in a different way than we normally do, than when we're, living in our homes with other people, coming to temple. This puts us in a different situation and allows us to explore what a relationship with God can be and to push those boundaries.
Well, that's a perfect lead in, actually. So, what does God mean to you?
Well, I actually have touched on it a little bit. Ultimately, God means a few different things. Number one, I do believe God is the creator of the universe. And so far, scientists have been able to go back and back and back and back, but they haven't been able to discover what caused the very first atom or the Big Bang or whatever it was. They can't go back far enough. I think that's where God is. And my own personal belief, I may be proved wrong, and I understand that scientists are on the verge of getting there. My own belief is that I'm not sure they ever will be able to get to the very beginning of time, of matter, of science, of all the things that we know as making up our existence. So that's a long way of saying I believe in God as the creator of the universe and the creator of humanity. I can't explain how that happened, but I believe it is true. I believe in God as this. There was one other idea I had, and I think I'm losing it, but let me. Okay, I believe in God as the source of ethical standards, practices, rules. How do we know that something is right? And how do we know that something is wrong? How do we know that to murder another human being is absolutely all the time wrong? I think the answer to that is God, because God is the only absolute that we have. If there is no God, then any decision about what is right or what is wrong is open for interpretation and is not objective, which is why I believe that God must be the ultimate source of what we believe is right and wrong in the universe. And as I said, and I believe that those laws are built into the structure of the universe as truly as the laws of physics, of biology, of mathematics, of physics, of all of the science and math studies that help us to understand how this universe works. I think also that somehow God is the reason the Jewish people exist. That's very much tied up with ethical behavior, but the Jews and God have something to do with each other as well. And I can't be a whole lot more specific than that, but I think there is a special relationship. There was one other idea, but I'm losing it. If it comes back, I'll let you know.
No problem. So my last question for you, just a small one, is so what does Judaism mean to you? You talked a little bit about it in terms of God, so I'd either love to hear more about that or just in general, your take on what Judaism means to you.
Yes. First of all, I love Judaism. I think it is a spectacular faith, belief system, religion, whatever you want to call it. It is more than a religion. And in truth, that's what I believe. That's what it means to me. It means to me a way of life. It is a way of looking at everything that happens to us, everything we might do, and everything we might have to do with others. I think every aspect of life can be seen through a Jewish lens. And therefore, Judaism means to me, a way of being in the world that is responsible, that is dignified, that is respectful of all other human beings, that sees all other human beings as creations of God, and therefore we are all equal. The part of Judaism that I think, I've already talked about the ethical behavior. Judaism means behaving in this world all the time as if, first of all, as if it does matter, so it's not as if it matters, because it does matter, and as if others were looking at you all the time and you wanted to make a good impression. It's hard to do, and I don't pretend that I am consistent, but that's what I do believe Judaism asks of us. There's another aspect of Judaism that I think we don't emphasize enough, and that is that Judaism is a way of elevating our lives and of beautifying our lives. That's Shabbat, for example, says, because you are human, because you are a creation of God, you not only have the right, but you have the obligation to spend at least one day a week resting, renewing, being answerable to nothing else but God's authority. And I believe that's what Shabbat is. And as part of that, to beautify the entire day. And so we light candles, we bless the wine, we have challah as part of a special meal. We go to temple when we can. I just think that all of the holidays and all of the rituals in which Jews are involved in, which we are asked to observe, are a way of saying we're not going to take this for granted. If we're going to sit down to eat a meal, we're going to think about where that meal came from, and we're going to give thanks for it. We're not just going to dig in. If the harvest is here, we're going to build Sukkot, because that raises our consciousness about where the harvest comes from and what our responsibility is within the ecosystem to make sure that those harvests continue. If we are going to celebrate our nationhood and our gift of freedom, we're going to sit down at a Passover Seder. We're going to share it with others. We're going to engage in rituals that remind us of the story of our history, because freedom is precious, and freedom is not something we can ever take for granted. It's something that is a gift to us, and that we have to protect, and that we have to work for all human beings to have the opportunity to be free. So Judaism, to me, is an ethical system of behavior, is a way of bringing meaning to all aspects of life, and is a way of beautifying our lives in ways that make them very special and help us to fulfill the real vision of humanity that I believe we were created to actualize.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for answering these questions.
It's my pleasure. I would love to continue the conversation.
I was going to ask you if middle school students have other questions, can they reach out to you via
Please.
email or other ways?
Always. And if you see me in the hallway and you've got a question, just wave and say, "Can I ask you a question?" Because I love questions about Judaism.
Awesome. Well,
It's
thank
one
you.
of the special things.
Thank you so much. We hope you have a wonderful trip.
Thank you.
And
Thank
we'll
you.
be talking to you about God some more soon.
Great.